Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? Today I have Tony Whatley. I didn't even check with you. Did I pronounce that correctly? Whatley?
Man, that is right. You got it right the first time. It's a 50-50 guess for most people.
Is.
So kudos, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you for stepping in the lab with all, it's a beautiful that we can do this from a distance and still connect. Listen, the reason I'm here is because I came across this book, which honestly, you guys haven't heard this. I'm going to plug you right away before I introduce the man himself. But Tony, I mean, look, the reason why I like having people like you is because you're a practitioner, right? Like you started a business, then you wrote a book, and I vet people. I don't just invite anybody in the lab. We have like over $1 billion worth of just assets under management and businesses of people come in the lab. So I'm really selective, and I love that. And the reason why I love it more is kind of an opposite. Listen, we've all heard the Gary V's of the world, etc. I like your idea of the side hustle millionaire, which is what you're known for, and because of this fantastic book. But why don't you tell who was Tony before and who is Tony now, and kind of just give people a little background of who you are.
How far do you want to go back, Ruben?
I want to go back to the trenches, man. We got time.
Oh man, let's see.
Take me back to the trenches, to the engineering days. We're working, just bouncing all sorts of jobs. Take me back.
All right, I got you. Let's see. I'll take it way back because I think that a lot of our formative years are in high school and things like that. So lower middle class. My parents were both blue collar. Dad, U.S. Marines, Vietnam vet, got out, worked in the chemical refineries the rest of his career. My mom, Japanese immigrant, she came over with my dad, obviously, and my mom and my sister, and basically worked in the public school systems as a cafeteria lady her entire career. So got two set of parents that were very hard workers, very disciplinarian. My mom was a disciplinarian on the education side. Dad was the U.S. gunnery sergeant in Marines, right? So very disciplinarian in every other way. Now, I didn't think I would ever be a business person. There was nobody in either of my families that had any money. So just thinking that you always hear these things like it takes money to make money, and you think that business owners have to have money, you need money to make money, and you just think it's going to be rich people only are going to have businesses. So that's what I thought about. And what I come to find out is I never thought I was going to be in the position I was in right now. And so I wanted to make six figures. Like most people, it's American dream. Just basically want to get six figures. And the closest thing that I can think about, we always hear about doctor, lawyer, or engineer, right? Yeah. I said, well, I like cars. Anybody that gets to know me after listening to this, I'm a car fanatic. All my businesses have been around performance cars. I built the largest General Motors website on the internet, LS1Tech.com. If you want to go look, there's about 300,000 members. And that's one of the businesses I sold to earn millions of dollars. So the title Side Hustle Millionaire is actually a nonfiction. That's a true story. And it's how I did all that kind of stuff. But it's really about the mindset and the process. I don't really go into the details of that actual business model in the book because that's not the business people are going to build. They want to build their own business. So I do that with the book. And thank you for introducing that. But so that's what I did is I basically got the engineering degree as a race to get to six figures. I got that. And then I started my first business around 2001, November 2001. And the thing is that was during a recession. The 2001 was a recession. That was a dot-com bust. And we're going through a potential recession right now at the time of this recording with the COVID-19 stuff going on. Absolutely. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknowns, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety about this area right now. And I just wanted to point that out because I started the company that made me millions during a recession. And here's the other thing. If that wasn't bad enough, I had a newborn son. I had a failed relationship with his mother that was very toxic. I had depression. I was working 3 jobs because I was unemployed for 6 months during the recession. I had to live off of credit cards and I maxed those things out, put myself about $40,000 in debt. And so I had to go get 3 jobs. So when it did come around and I was able to go get another engineering job, it was very low level because I only had 6 months of experience. I took one that was paying a lot less than my previous job. And even when I got home from that engineering job where most people would feel like they accomplished something because they've got the salary and they just go home and sit on the couch, I was really honest with myself, Ruben. I said, I don't have the lifestyle that I want. So what do I need to do about this? Well, I can sit my ass on the couch and watch sitcoms and surf on the internet like most people, or I can go get another job. So that's what I did. I went back to the restaurant that I was managing and waiting tables at while I was in school and said, hey, can I pick up extra shifts? You guys know me. I'm already trained. I already know what I'm doing. And they said, hell yeah, man, we'd love to have you come back. So I would get home at 4:30, 5 o'clock every day, and I'd put my apron on and I would go work the restaurants every single night, every night, picking up shifts. And then I said, okay, I have Saturday afternoons off. So what am I going to do there? I'm going to go work on cars. So I went to a performance shop and wrenched on cars and worked sales at the counter. So here I was with 3 different jobs, with an engineering job, in depression, with a newborn, failed relationship. I'm just stacking all these potential excuses that would have made most people quit. Most people would quit with one of those excuses. I had several. And where I'm going with that is that I didn't have the lifestyle I want. So I was willing to go do what it takes to get the results that I wanted. So that's why I ended up where I am now. And I don't like when people come to me and they go, oh, Tony, I got no time. I got kids. It's like, that's the biggest bullshit there is. There's so many people out there that's kind of excuses. And the problem with that is that that's like saying that nobody has ever become successful with kids. Nobody's ever become successful with a full-time job. Nobody's ever become successful with depression. Like, it's all bullshit. Like, millions of people have done that. Yeah. So the problem is, I think a lot of times people just hang around with other people who don't challenge them or find their potential. And they basically use that excuse back and forth with each other. And they just do that to validate their excuses. And then they feel better about themselves. But deep down inside, we know we're lying to ourselves. So I've always been the daredevil type. I've always been the one to take those risks and do stunts. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I pursue fear. I race cars over 200 miles per hour and do crazy stuff. But that also lends to entrepreneurship because I'm willing to look at the potential goal and look at the upsides versus the downsides and go, you know what, I'm just going to go take action and I'm going to learn. I'm not afraid to suck at something at the beginning. And you're starting to see a lot of things unraveling in my mind about how I'm willing to go do something and understand that I'm going to suck. And I'm okay with that because I know I can get better. And most people are really just afraid of ever sucking because they're so afraid of what people are going to say about them sucking or their failures. So that's me in a nutshell, how I ended up to get the business started.
I love that. I love that. That was a good intro because I think it's important that we get perspective, right? I think something that happens as well, sometimes people forget as well what it took and they're kind of telling you where they're at today. So I think it's really important to identify that. So that was before. So let's because we're going to circle back. So today you told us you still, tap into some of those urges that you want to do, like racing and tackling your fear still. But how has this going through this side hustle millionaire, fast forward to today, what is it that gets you out of bed? What is it that you're currently seeking and what is it that you're doing?
So here's the funny thing about entrepreneurship. Like, a lot of people think that they have to know all the answers to start. They think they need to read that other book, go to that other seminar, hire that other coach. They always think that they need some kind of information before they start. They're like, they just want to arm themselves with all this information. And that is not what real entrepreneurs do. Real entrepreneurs start something and then they improve as they go and they learn as they go. Yeah. And the why I'm saying that is that most people are always waiting for this perfect time, perfect opportunity. And that, it doesn't exist, dude.
Yeah.
Like, that's now, that's today.
Yeah.
Don't think that you need to know everything. Don't think that you have to have all the answers because the highly successful people just started and they get punched in the face once in a while and they lose here and they win there and they come around, they learn new things. They add new things to their knowledge base or their arsenal of tools. And they improve over time. And that's important because you don't really learn anything when you never fail. There's a lot of people that they've had the home run on the first hit and they think they know everything. And then they go get punched in the face 5 times in a row after that. And they start to lose confidence. They're like, wow, I just got really lucky, I guess. And I was able to repeat this kind of business process and this mindset and teach other people to replicate it. But what I did now, 365 Driven, that's a brand. I launched that in 2017. It came after a major car accident in 2015 where I did some soul searching. Okay, I race cars, and we can go into that story. But after that accident, I said, you know what? What if I would have died that night? Because I really thought I was going to die in that moment. So what if I would have died that night? How would I have been remembered? And when you start to think about mortality, it leads to legacy. It leads to really honest soul searching. Am I really doing everything I can do? or am I just full of shit? And I was full of shit, just like most people. Just most people are unwilling to admit that. So I started saying, if I would have died, how would have people remembered me? I'm just curious. Like, what would have been on my eulogy, right? And I started looking back at the people I've known who had passed away in the same scene, the car scene, the motorcycle scene. We see people pass away all the time. How do they get remembered? It was always the same thing, Ruben. So-and-so was a nice guy, gone too soon. So-and-so had a nice car. So-and-so, man, that guy could drive. It's very superficial. And I get that, if you're really a low standard human, you would like to be remembered as a nice guy or doing something nice. That would be something you would aspire to. But for someone who is always trying to help other people and try to be nice all the time, that's just average. That's like, okay, that's all I did with my life. Like, that's it. That's pretty shallow. And what it was glaringly obvious that I wasn't doing everything possible. I didn't want to be on stage. I didn't want to do microphone. I didn't want to be on the other side of the camera. I had a lot of insecurities around that. I had money, made millions, sold that, helped other people privately. The only people that were benefiting from my business knowledge were the people in my close proximity. And I've built dozens of millionaires out of my friends by building their companies and giving them advice. And they always told me, man, you should be doing this full time. You're really good at this. Like, look at the results. And I'm like, man, I don't need to do that. I got money. I've got this full-time job that's paying me a lot of money too, and running my own companies. And it's like I just made all these convenient excuses because I was so afraid of putting myself out there until that night I was in the car accident. And then it reframed everything, and it made me think about, man, I'm just being a bitch. I'm just hiding my message. I know I'm not good on the microphone yet. I know I can't stand on stages yet. I know I don't like being in front of the camera, but that's just being a bitch. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, how do I get better? How do I get better? How do I improve this? I had stage fright. How do I solve that? Well, you do what everyone else has solved it. You ask questions. How did you solve it? How did you do that? Oh, you joined Toastmasters. You hired a speaking coach. You did videos. You just made yourself really uncomfortable. And like over time, repetition, you got him better. You started to improve. Are you kidding? You're like, oh, well, I can do that. There's the daredevil in me. It's like, well, I'll just do that. I know it's going to suck. I know people are going to make fun of me. I know people are gonna be like, what are you doing? Like, are you a motivational speaker and just saying a bunch of bullshit? And I saw that, but it was that fear of potential criticism that what keeps most people grounded. And I had that. I still have those fears. Anytime I go live or stand on the stage, you still have those fears. But once you start to get enough skills through repetition, your confidence starts to grow, and you start to not focus inward on those self insecurities and those the mental trash in your head. And when you can start to focus on the audience or that one listener that's listening to this episode right now, Ruben, that one listener that's resonating what I'm saying, and they know that they're full of shit and they need to go out there and just do something. I hope I reach through this microphone and hit them with the energy that they can go do that and empower them to go do that. So you have to be willing to suck. You have to be willing to go do something you're not good at and get better. And when you can focus outward and start impacting those people rather than worrying about yourself, that's when you can really start to get the confidence. And once you have that, nobody can ever take it away.
I mean, we could drop the mic right now. The reason why it's so fascinating, Tony, is like, I do these a lot, and it's just so fascinating. Like, success leaves trails, and I love the key things that I'm hearing. It's like, there's the investing yourself, there's the purpose-driven, there's the failure. And I want to hit on a few of those because I think this is a really good time right now.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I heard is that the car crash, it's crazy because I've heard that, like, and it's so crazy that sometimes you need that pivotal shift, right? In order for you to kind of get clarity. But then I want to talk about that internal voice that I think a lot of the noise that we hear is really us tuning into our voices internally and listening to that. There's no noise out there. There's a lot of positive noise, but most of the noise is in here. And I think that's just fascinating because once you realize that it's bigger than this little noise or these voices that you're hearing, and it's more about that. I love how you said that one person that you can reach on the other side of the mic, then you realize that it's bigger than you. And so that's fascinating. But let's talk about, because as entrepreneurs, we're problem solvers, and you talked about this. Like right now, we're going through a crisis, and there's opportunity to help people, and an opportunity to overcome and see an opportunity to seize the moment, right? So, I guess let's talk about this a little bit as we transition into your book. In the site Hustle Millionaire, you talk about looking at opportunities. how would one or should one look at opportunities right now? Because I think there's a big misconception between solving a problem as an entrepreneur and then also the whole going with your passion. And you have a really good way to do to talk about that. And I want to segue into that, but let's talk about this for a second. Can you answer that? How should one tackle a problem right now as an entrepreneur?
Man, entrepreneurs solve every problem in the world, don't we? So the thing is that let's talk about opportunity.
Yeah.
Opportunity comes around because your brain is turned on to some kind of a challenge that you're trying to solve. So the thing is that it may be that purpose or that legacy that you're trying to build, or it may just be some kind of an income that you're trying to build. You don't want to make 6 figures. You want to make $1 million a year, things like that. The thing is that most people that have a fixed mindset, basically the negative mindset, will say things they self-sabotage their brain, their subconscious. They say things like, I'll never be a millionaire. I'll never own a Ferrari. I'll never be able to stand on a stage or have 1 million followers. I'm never going to, they basically disqualify themselves from the game by telling their subconscious that they're not worthy, they can't do that. And the problem is that your brain goes, okay, well, cool. I'm just not going to play anymore. I'm just going to sit here on the sidelines. And then opportunity just blows past you like nonstop because you're not even aware. Now, somebody with a growth mindset, somebody that's positive minded will tell themselves, I'm not a millionaire yet. And they'll say, what do I need to do that? What do I need to do to achieve that? They challenge their brain. They give their brain puzzles and games. So when you think about the thing is your brain's a very powerful computer essentially. And if you give it an objective, it likes to problem solve. It likes to try to figure out how to get to that result. So if you say something like, you know what, I want to lose 30 pounds. And you really reinforce it. You start to believe that I need to lose 30 pounds. You're going to start to find these creative ways to do that. Maybe when you grab that triple cheeseburger in your milkshake, your brain's like, hey, that's not getting us to the goal. And you're like reminded like, yeah, that's probably not going to be a good idea. Or maybe you see the new gym that opens up that you just happen to be driving by. You're like, dude, maybe I need to go join that. Maybe that's the answer. So the thing is when we feed our brains with our goals, really projecting forward and visualizing what we would like to have in our lives and what our lifestyles could be, you create those goals in your brain and your subconscious starts to always be looking and scanning your peripheral for opportunities. And when your brain is always looking for those kind of challenges to get you to the goals that you set, it's going to be something that pops out and it's going to be like, Ruben, that's it, man. That's it right there. That's the thing. I've been looking, man. I've been looking for all the stuff and that's the thing right there. And you're going to know deep down into your core that, man, I need to go look into that. Like something's telling me I need to go do that. Or if somebody would have had their brain turned off, dude, they would have never even seen that opportunity. It wouldn't even have been a flag popping up. So opportunity right now is really just to think about, it's like anything, man. It's how you solve a problem or a gripe or how to create some impact. And the thing that I like to challenge people with is that you got to think about impacting millions of people. And I get it because I didn't always think this way. And I want to understand that you're going to step this into it. So earlier I talked about how I can impact one person listening. Yeah. I want everybody to think about that. If you don't think you can influence other people, that's a self-limiting belief. Yeah. You got to get that out of your head. Go impact one person. Go change their life. Go encourage people on your social media. Go give them some credit. Go, see some potential in somebody that doesn't see it for themselves, and maybe water that plant, see something results from it. And you're going to start to go, wow, I actually influenced that. That was pretty cool. Now go influence 10 people. Then go influence 100 people, then maybe 1,000 people, and then maybe 10,000 people. And then soon enough, you'll be like, man, I influence 100,000 people. And then there's nothing else. We can't even say thousands anymore. So you have to say, I have to go influence millions of people. And at first, when you start to say that, it's going to sound a little wishy-washy. It's going to be like, man, like I'm going to impact millions of people. You're going to question that because it just sounds so big. And but when you've already impacted thousands, the next step is millions. So you have to say that. And you say this enough, you start to believe it and you go, well, that's the reality because I've already impacted millions, or I've already impacted thousands. So now I have to impact millions. I've already done thousands. Like I can't go backwards. So I'm telling you this because you're going to grow in your mindset as you start to accomplish and start to see results. And that's normal. Like people who just walk out there and say, man, I'm going to impact billions of people. Yeah. But they haven't impacted one person. Do you really think that anybody's going to believe that person? They don't even believe it themselves. Okay. They're just doing lip service. They're just basically saying stuff, but it's not true. So I used to say that when I was writing the book, I said, man, I'm going to impact thousands of people. And then it sold 1,000 copies the first week. I was like, oh shit, I guess I'm going to impact 10,000 people.
Okay, so I want to touch on that, Tony, because I think that's important. The goal thing, right? Because that's something that internally sometimes I struggle with myself, and maybe someone who's listening. I want to talk about this because I think it ties into the scalability opportunity, and then with the goal, the end goal in mind, which is one thing you talk about in your book, which I love. Okay, so let's talk about these points for a second. You have an end goal in mind. Should one start with a practical problem solve of, let me help one person and then I'll put the systems in place to scale? Or should I think, because people make this mistake, I shouldn't tackle this opportunity, it's not really scalable. Can you talk about what your mind is now? Because I know now you're very seasoned, but how should one think? If I'm thinking in the beginning, should I be thinking of fixing this initial problem that's in front of me and then build systems later to scale? Or should I think, no, let me really think of the end goal. Can I truly help 1 million people in this opportunity? Yes or no? How do you think about it?
Nowadays, after 20 years of business ownership, there's definitely a different process. I had to learn the slow and hard way. I could have achieved everything I achieved in probably 5 years instead of 20 years if I just hired the right people and learned the right things, and not try to pat yourself on the back and say, I just did everything myself. I code my own websites and do graphic design and all that stuff. But nowadays I could just pay somebody to do that, where I just was wasting a crazy amount of time doing things. Really, because out of curiosity, I like learning new things at the same time, but progress is what we're really looking for, not just trying to add to our skill set. Now, the thing is that going back to looking at how to scale your business or your idea, let's take your ideation phase of your business. Nowadays, when I look at someone that comes to me and go, hey, man, I want to start a business, I ask them, what is your purpose? What is your passion? What is your expertise? What are the things we can monetize right now, whether that's skills or knowledge? And I started to look and see how those intersect and say, man, maybe we do something here. And one of the things I always want people to have is a financial goal or a purpose goal. And I don't think that you need both, because some people are very purpose driven and financials just come as a result. I think of money as a scorecard, not really an objective. I like to win the game, and the scorecard is just what's up on the board. That's the money in the bank. Like, oh, cool, I did a really good game. I had good strategy, outplayed the other person. Boom, there's a scorecard. Most people come into this entrepreneurship with very little experience, and they just focus on money. And I'll tell you, here's a funny question that I always get answers. Whenever I take someone from the corporate world and they want to start a business, one of the first questions I always ask them is, how much do you want to make per year? And I just sit back and I wait for the response, because I already know what the response is going to be. Hopefully somebody listening to this is maybe working a job right now and they've answered that number in their head right now. Here's the crystal ball. You basically answered what your salary is at your current job. And you go, what did that number come from? Well, that's what I earn now. So you think of a business as a replacement for your salary rather than seeing the true potential of your business. You have already created limiting beliefs around what your potential is. And the thing is that we're programmed with our subconscious on our self-worth based on a snapshot of where we are on a financial level. So if you ask somebody that's making $10 an hour, what's your potential? They're going to tell you, man, I'd like to make $15 an hour someday.
It's relative.
You ask somebody that's making $50,000 a year, like, man, I would kill to make 75,000. You ask somebody that's making 100,000, man, I would love to make 200,000 someday. And they always set these self-limiting beliefs because they look at the corporate org structure and what the pay allows. And they just think that that's all their potential, because they look at their boss and they look at their boss's boss, and they kind of generally know what those people earn, and they think that's their potential. But when we get into entrepreneurship, you have to realize that there's no limit. There's no limit. So I want people to kind of escape the employee mindset and realize that when you go into entrepreneurship, if you build the right business model, there is no limit. I mean, we've seen people become billionaires by creating an app that wasn't even valued at billions just because they were hedging on where it was going to be on the potential. Understanding these kind of things is that there is no limit. But 9 times out of 10, Ruben, people will tell me their financial goal is what they're earning or just a little bit more, because they think that's all that's possible for them, because they've been told for the last 5, 10, 20 years by their boss, like, this is all you're worth. Someday you're going to get a raise and we're going to pay you this amount. So they just think that this is my potential. And it's crazy to think about that kind of stuff. It's like, what are you limiting yourself so much? So, dude, break out of that mindset and just think about, okay, how do I want to start a business? First, the second question may be like, how many people you want to impact? Because scalability comes by how many people's problem you solve. And also think about, what is $100,000 problem that you solve? Because a lot of people want to go, I want to create a Shopify account, Ruben, and I want to sell t-shirts. And it's real easy to do that. But then I start doing the math with them. I say, how many t-shirts do you think you need to sell to make $10,000?
Yeah.
And they start doing the math, and the profit's only like $3 or $4 a shirt. You got to sell a lot of t-shirts. You got to have a whole lot of people that want to get behind your brand to go make $10,000. And so if you're going to go sell something, people, please pay attention to this. If you're going to go sell something expensive. It takes the same amount of work.
Absolutely.
Go sell cars, houses, luxury goods. Sell something as expensive as you can get your hands on to sell or get access to sell. That's what you want to sell, because commissions are usually based on a percentage of the value of what you're selling. So selling t-shirts to make $3 a shirt may make you feel good because you sold something and you had a air quotes customer. But for example, one of my businesses is online custom wheels for cars. It was a vertical that was a spinoff from my businesses. My average sale is $6,000 for one sale.
Yeah. And
I usually can make $1,000 from one email. So why would I go sell t-shirts? I'd have to sell a lot of t-shirts to make $1,000.
So is that more or less what you mean when you think of the end? Think with the end in mind, because I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing, obviously, there's the, what is your end goal? Who is it that you're trying to impact? How many people? But then it's also, how big is the problem you want to solve? And I'm wondering if we're reverse engineering here, and we're thinking, okay, what should be the blueprint that I'm thinking of? And again, there's no rocket science, because at the end, we're going to get to this segment that just do it at the end of the day. But I just want to know, I like to know behind the mind of Tony. Do you think right now in retrospect, it's thinking about the magnitude of the problem or the type of problem, or is just getting out there and solving one problem and then figuring out the rest?
If I was going to build a business for myself,
yeah,
I would look for how many people could I either influence or impact.
Yeah.
Because I want the entire world to be my potential customer base. That's not going to be reality, but I want it to be potentially that everybody, perhaps with the internet, could potentially be my customer.
I like that.
Now, that is very accessible nowadays.
Yeah.
You could be in the middle of the woods in a cabin. As long as you had Wi-Fi, you could reach the entire world with your phone. And that's the reality. Is the world is really small now because of cell phones and smartphones and social media. So I'm looking at, how do I impact the massive amount of people by solving some kind of a problem for them that they may not have to pay a lot of money, but they're going to pay enough to solve that problem, whatever that problem is or whatever that challenge is. That amplifies, it scales. I learned this early on. I'll tell you, I remember the first story of scalability. You want to hear that story?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I was like 8 or 9 years old when I realized what scalability was. I was watching a daytime talk show with my mom, probably in the summertime. And it was probably like Donahue or Oprah or just something we were watching. My mom used to watch those shows. And I remember there was a Japanese guest on there, and my mom's Japanese and I'm half Japanese. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to pay attention. What is this guy? Because he was sitting there and he was wearing a white t-shirt and he was covered with rainbow colored octopuses, like hundreds of like rubber octopuses sewn to his shirt. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this Asian dude with a t-shirt with octopuses sewed all over it? And he was the inventor of the wacky wall walker. So these octopuses were very sticky rubber, and they had some kind of goo on them, and you throw them on the wall and they kind of tumble down the wall, sticking to the wall.
Yeah.
He sold 200 million of those, and for $1 a piece. And I remember like, oh, I have some of those. Like, they're in my cereal box. I've got, they're on the counter of every dime store. They're at every gas station on the counter, $1 a piece. All the kids at school had them. We used to throw them at each other, and they're $1 a piece. So I never really thought about it. It's just a toy that you got into a Cracker Jacks box or the cereal box, like, big deal. And then he's like, yeah, I sold 200 million of these, and multimillionaire. And I'm like, this guy sold 200 million of this $1 item. What's the math? Oh, he made $200 million.
Yeah.
See, and I was a kid, and I was like, that's how do you get rich selling something for $1? Like, you sell 200 million of them.
Yeah.
But I remember that. I still remember that very moment. And that's weird, because maybe I was always meant to do some kind of scaling, but me building out my community's 300,000 members, I didn't charge those people. they got the value of being there and interacting with the industry and kind of treating it like media and being the first to hear the news and seeing the how-to articles and how to drive faster and how to make your car faster and all these different things that we were creating value. But we made money off of ad revenue. We just had a lot of eyeballs showing up. We had over 100,000 people visiting our website every single day, which is like a small town, small city. And those advertisers knew that the access to their customers were there. So they just paid us money for the showing up and having a banner and being access to those customers. So it's not unlike anything like Facebook and Instagram. It's a very similar business model. They're just paying, you're making money on ads. People are using Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn for free, but it's because they're making ad money. They're not charging us. They're creating value. We go there, we get ads. So it's a very similar model that I was doing in 2001. I actually sold my company in 2007 before Facebook was even like a thing. So
that's awesome. It's crazy because I was just listening to this as you're speaking. I'm thinking about, this whole thing about niches, right? And I was literally just listening to this. Who was it today? I think it might have been Pete or something like that. Vargas, which we were just talking about, and it said, don't serve, serve the masses, not the classes. And I keep thinking about this too, because sometimes it's something we're internally struggling with as well. What's your thought on niches then? Should someone niche down? I mean, I know you answered this, that you should try to, serve as many people as possible, but what are your thoughts on niches? Like, what if you just did rims for, your, I don't know if it was Chevys, or the
I did
Viper, Dodge down. Viper. Yeah. So
I actually did niche down that business. So here's the funny thing about that is that when I first started Deviate Motoring, I said, you know what, I'm going to sell wheels and tires. Mm-hmm. And then probably 6 years into the business, I think it's been around 17 years now, I said, I'm not going to sell tires anymore. And people are like, well, wheels and tires kind of go together. Why aren't you selling tires? It's like, because there's no profit in tires unless you're mounting and balancing it. And you got a bunch of 16-year-old kids out there that you're paying $10 an hour and you're charging, $100 an hour to mount and balance tires. Mm-hmm. So unless you have a volume of sales, there's no real markup in tires. That's the thing I discovered. Really? For $1,000 set of tires for performance car, I make like $80. And then when you back out the credit card fees, you like lose money. It's like, then I'm not going to sell these. So tire stores, I'm blowing up their business model right here. Tire stores make money from selling you those road hazard certificates. When you go buy, you want to buy road hazard certificates? That's like insurance. If you get a nail in it, they'll replace it for free. They do that, and they make their money from labor. There's not a lot of money in the actual sales of the tires unless you have a lot of volume, which gives you buying power to get inventory. So I'm not going to compete against those big tire shops that are local. So it's like, I'm just going to sell wheels, because they can order tires online cheaper than I can sell them. So I'm just going to be like, hey, these are the tire sizes you need. Here's where you should go order those. And I'm just like, I don't have to mess with them because they'll drop ship. So, hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue that I never had to put my hands on. And there's business models like that. It's also cash positive. What I do is like, I'm getting paid before the product is even built. So I don't have to carry inventory. They're ordering exactly what they want for their vehicle. Yeah. And I did niche down to specific types of groups. I focus on American performance cars and muscle cars. I don't deal with the Japanese cars. I don't really deal with the hyper exotic cars. Like, they all have their different customer bases. So I focus on American performance cars and muscle cars. And that's a pretty good living just off of that. So could I expand? Yeah, I could definitely do that. But I was like, I serve the people I resonate with. Yeah. I serve the people I like working with, the people that we can have the conversations about their unique cars, because I have those cars myself. Okay. So it's,
now you're getting into branding, which is exactly the segue of people. I mean, there's a thing about people who drive, the American muscle cars and all that. There's this real, it's core values that they all believe in. Right. And I've seen that because my uncle has a Shelby. And he loves that thing, Cobra or whatever. I mean, the guy, you can, yeah. So that's so interesting. So I guess from the branding side, let's go into the branding, because I think that's really important. What are your thoughts on how one should brand today?
Are you talking about personal brand or?
No, I'm talking about like incorporating a brand in a business, because I think we're starting to see that a lot more. And because it sounds like you have a very niched community that's pretty much like this. And is that something that you would do? I guess to better ask the question, is that something you would do up front in the beginning, or is that something where you gather data, and then you kind of say, all right, I get it now. Let's just niche down and build a brand later? Beginning or a little after?
I build a brand before I launch it, and there's a process. There's definitely a process with a brand. A lot of people get this wrong, so it's a very important topic. I think about the people I want to impact, first of all, when I'm building a brand. And I think about, what do these people want to say? What would they wear on a shirt? What would be their mantra? What would be the thing that they tell people they are or they belong to, and proudly tell people they're belonging to? So for example, my business, 365 Driven, I could literally walk up to anybody, random person, and go, hey man, are you 365 driven? And they would know what I mean. They'd be like, days of the year and driven. Yeah, I guess, yeah, I am. And why would you say you're not? First of all, you'd be like, no, I'm not driven every day. I'm kind of a lazy ass. Like, like, so it's a mantra.
I love it, by the way.
It's a mantra. It's like, okay, hashtag 365 driven.
Yeah.
So I built something that people want to be a part of, because even me, like you and I, before we fired up this thing, Arate Syndicate is a group that I'm in with Ed Milet and Andy Frizella. That is a group that high performance people that are multimillionaires, that we just want to be a part of things. Every human, you're probably a part of several things. I'm a part of several things. We're always looking for the tribes that resonate with us in different areas of our life. So if I can build something that creates a movement or some kind of a tribe, that's my superpower. I build massive communities. That's what I do. So I've got that experience. I've been able to duplicate that a few times. So I wanted to build one instead of cars. I wanted to build one for entrepreneurs. I said, I love business and I love cars. The only two things I really love is business and cars. So I'm going to take this and go do an entrepreneurship business model version of it. But in order to do that, I had to be able to be more vocal, be more on social media. Like we talked about, being very uncomfortable doing these kind of things, getting on stage, getting on podcasts, getting a book out there. I had to be able to amplify my message across thousands of people, because one-on-one will only get you so far. So that's what I did, is I wrote the book, and I said, okay, man, I'm branding the book. It's on the back. It says 365 Driven. Even if you look at the book cover, I want to show you, you probably didn't even catch this. Look at the little dollar, the number of dollar on there, the ID number. You see the dollar?
Yeah.
What does it say?
Driven.
That's 365
badass.
Driven. See,
that's badass.
So it's embedded branding right there on the front cover.
That's awesome.
And so I'm very good at with branding, and I think about that, and I said, okay, I've got the mantra, and the domain name has to be available too, but like, don't go running down the road and before trademarks, and you need to make sure that all this stuff is available before you go down the road. So come up with the unique ideas, figure out which ones are going to be the mantra keywords, and never name something that's going to have a limiting factor in it. And here's a key. A limiting factor would have been calling this Tony Whatley. A limiting factor would have been calling this 365 Driven small business owners. See, these are all limiting factors that are not necessary. Think about this. When I say Apple, like, we know that's a computer, but it could have been anything. It could have been shoes. It could have been vacation travel. It could have been a car. It could be anything. Nike, it's just a word. Google, it's just a word. It's not Google search engine.
Yeah.
Google search engine based in California. Like, it's so, like, I hate when people use like area names, like Houston Tire. It's like, well, do you just want to have business in tire? Yeah, because if I'm in Seattle, like, why the hell would I want to buy something from Houston Tire? So it's not necessary. So don't use regionalized names. Don't use your personal names, because you can't sell yourself. You can't pass the torch, because the brand is you. That also tells me a lot about ego. When you name it after yourself, that's ego. It's pure ego. I want to be famous. I want people to know my name. Well, you know what? Everybody knows Elon Musk, and that's not the name of his company.
I'm so glad you're saying this, because again, this ties back to having the end goal in mind. But at the same time, I think it gives you the flexibility to learn as an entrepreneur and pivot. And Absolutely. I know that's one of the first mistakes I made when I was in college. I had a fitness business I named Ruben Fit Kanye. And I remember I told myself I will never have a name, because not only is that hard, I have buddies, they just had an exit strategy a couple years back. And it's hard to sell your name once it's attached.
I mean, it's just weird.
And it's hard to partner, which I've noticed too, right? Like, if you want to grow it bigger than you, good luck selling something to someone that has Whatley on it. I'm like, well, I want my name on it, Whatley and Associates now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's that's such a good point, and I'm glad you're bringing it together, because we're touching brands, we're touching the process and building communities. Now, I want to segue into a very, very important point that you make in your book. And you mentioned this too, and I want to make sure that it doesn't slip through the cracks. You mentioned that I wouldn't have gotten along way faster had I surrounded myself with the right people. Mm-hmm. And this ties in, the reason why I love this topic is this ties into when you're starting out. And again, this is experimentation. We try things, right? But, and by the way, the name of the company, my other company is Invested Talent, just so it doesn't, I don't pigeonhole myself into, Invested Talent can mean a lot of different things down the road. So, but going back to that, you talk about mentors, and that's a big one because I'm finding this can help me out as well. Would you advise someone to come up with a proof of concept first and do their due diligence, start testing things out, doing stuff, and then finding a mentor, or doing your research and then finding that mentor and then doing the work? Like I don't know if there's a right or wrong, but the reason why I'm asking this is because, I think you find a different mentor based on where you're at and based on where they can help you. Maybe you pay for one, but maybe someone will tuck you under their wing once they see you put in the work. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of wondering, what are your thoughts now, retrospective, like when you say that, like, would you have done it once you would have gotten enough under your belt to be like, hey, I think I need help?
You always have to do the due diligence. You have to do the research. You have to figure out generally what business model that you want to pursue. Mm-hmm. And then once you have a general idea of what you want to do and how it's going to look and how it's going to smell and how you're going to operate it, now you start to look for mentors who have achieved that or have some unique skill set or knowledge that can help you expedite the process. So you have to know what you want and then go find someone that's done that before. Because a lot of times I'll tell people they waste a lot of times on these $10 an hour problems. If you go pay someone that's charging you $500 an hour as a mentor and you're asking them how to solve $10 an hour type person jobs, like you're just killing yourself, like you're wasting your time. And a good mentor will be like, dude, you're wasting my time. This is a $10 an hour problem. Like go hire a VA, a virtual assistant, go hire an administrative assistant, go hire a designer. These are like $15 an hour problems. You're paying me $500 an hour to solve a $15. So the logic starts to happen, and they're like, "You're right. I should have looked at the skill set required, or the knowledge required to solve this problem." Because here's the thing, Ruben, is that average people, they get presented with a challenge or the problem, and the first thing that average people ask themselves is, "How do I do this? Yeah. How do I do this?" It's always, "How do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this?" Successful people, who do I know that can do this? Who do I know that I can hire to do this? Who do I know that has a collaborative or a network that can make this happen? And then once they know the who, then the how question comes, right? It's not the first question. So that's very important. It's a distinction I had to learn on my own. Now, if I get it, if you're sitting there and you don't have a lot of money, hopefully you have a lot of time, because you can have time or money. And when you're first getting started, you may not have a lot of extra money. So you have to do things on your own. You have to figure stuff out. But as soon as you start to make yourself some money, don't get greedy and start paying yourself right away, especially if it's a side hustle. Like take that money, that profit, roll it back into the company, start building it, starting to grow it a little bit. It starts to be like the snowball going downhill. It starts to grow and grow. And don't pay yourself right away. If you don't need that income, don't be blowing it on stupid stuff, because soon enough, you'll have enough saved up to go hire that $10 an hour problem and that $15 an hour person, or that VA that's working for $3 an hour overseas that can do a lot of the tasks. So these are very important things to understand. But yeah, Ruben, you have to know generally what you want to do and then get the mentor, because a true mentor, I also want to make a distinction between a business coach and a business mentor. We see a lot of people being business coaches, but very few will call themselves a mentor. And the difference is that a mentor has actually done what they teach. There's a lot of business coaches out there who get their certification from a little school. They teach them how to ask the right questions that hopefully lead them onto the self-discovery to find the solution that's already within them. And they go, man, you knew the answer all along. And they give you a little credit and they go, man, that's a good job. That's important. But a mentor will do that too, because they don't want you to be codependent on them and having to rely on somebody else to make decisions. We teach you how to make the decisions and go through that process. But as a mentor, we also go, dude, what are you doing? Like, don't do that. Like, do this, or we use our own experience to try to save and shortcut some of the things. And we're a general business coach. That's one of the questions I would ask a business coach, that if you're looking for somebody, is like, what businesses have you run? Have you ever run any businesses? You'll find that I would say 75% of the business coaches out there have a little certificate, but they've never actually owned a business other than their business coaching.
And that's why we have a true practitioner in the lab. And that's another thing. I don't ever read a book because, again, everything that I read is business oriented and personal development driven. I always look at the bio. Did you make your money from writing books? Which there's nothing wrong with it,
No.
but that's not what I'm trying to do. Or did you start a business and now you're writing a book?
Perfect.
I want to
answer.
read from that guy.
Yeah, because if you wanted to make money from just writing books, you would go hire somebody that just made money from writing books because they would teach you that process.
Absolutely. Listen, you said something key that I want to highlight. You better have time if you don't have money. The reason why I love Side Hustle Millionaire is I think people struggle, with this one where, and again, there's nothing wrong with having a job because again, I'm still consulting and it's a beautiful thing because it's one of those things where I don't want to step away until I have what you talk about, and that's the dream of mine, is where the business is really you're looking at it and you're like, all right, now I can comfortably step away and I don't have to eat in it through. But that's another one conversation. You said you don't have time, and what I love in your book, you said it isn't what you're really saying. It isn't my priority. Okay, so now there's someone who's listening, who's got a full-time job and got all sorts of things going on at home. We all do, right? Can you talk about, I think we need to hear this more often because entrepreneurship is getting really sexy.
Not right now. Not right now.
Well, now people are like, yeah. But even then, as an entrepreneur, you should be beaming because there's a lot of opportunities to solve problems. We were just talking about that offline. But look, I want to talk about that for a little bit. Like, business is hard, right? And you talked about it a little bit. I want to tie this. You said, I don't have time, or it equals it isn't a priority for you. But then you also mentioned that a fantastic terminology, staircase business, which I love. Do you want to talk about what the importance of a staircase business is and might be for someone who maybe already has existing skill sets at work that they can maybe apply? Like, can you maybe talk about that link? Because I think it's very important.
Yeah, it's actually the staircase business. I'm not actually talking to someone to actually building a staircase for a house. I mean, hey, if that's your business, I'd go for it. But that's not what we're talking about here. Yeah. Here's the thing: is that most people who are, let's say, I love employees too. I did it for 25 years. I got to see the entrepreneurship side and the entrepreneur both at the same time, and seeing the dynamic and understanding like why do they think this way. Like it was a really fun psychology experience, seeing both sides of that fence at the same time for 20 years. Here's the thing. Most people who aspire to just do average things or have a complacency in their lives, they generally hang out with other people who are basically the same as them. Whatever your socioeconomic status is, you tend to have friends around the same income level or plus or minus a few $1,000s, but generally the same people. And when you have excuses, you tend to hang around with other people who also have the same excuses. So when I talk about staircase businesses, that's one of the things that squashes one of the big excuses, because a lot of times people will get asked, man, Ruben, you're so smart. Why don't you start a business, man? And one of the things they go, well, it takes money to make money. Like that's a big excuse. It's not true. The company I sold for millions of dollars, it cost me $350 to start that business. That was software licenses and renting a server for a few months and then doing some graphic design and creating an LLC. That's all it was. There's millions and millions of companies that have made millions and millions of dollars that started from zero. I didn't even have an LLC till 6 months into that business. I was just, oh man, this is like making real money now. I think I need to go get one of those, what are they called, an LLC or something. And I illustrate this because I didn't have all the answers when I got started. And that's what I touched on earlier. But you got to think about this is that a lot of people, you tell them like, hey man, when you start a business, what do they think? They think about Chevrolet, or they think about Nike, or they think about Google, and they go, man, it takes millions of dollars to start those. I want to own a Ferrari dealership. It takes $500 million to go build a Ferrari. Like, I don't have that. So I guess I'm just not going to start a business. So they're really reaching for these big Goliath giant businesses as what they perceive as entrepreneurship. And they basically know that that's not possible because it's not. And so they go, well, I guess it's not in it for me. I can't ever go start my business. So The staircase business is that, yeah, maybe your dream is to go own a Ferrari dealership, but you can't just start a Ferrari dealership. So now let's think about maybe 10 businesses that you need to start before you can afford that Ferrari dealership. So maybe that first business makes $1,000 a month. And you go, man, that's pretty good. I'm learning some fundamentals. I'm getting some marketing experience. I'm starting to learn how to transact. I got some general accounting practices. Okay, maybe you sell that to a friend or something and you make, $10,000 to $100,000 or something like that. And then you go, okay, I'm going to build this company that's going to make $100,000 a year. Then you sell that, or you scale it and you get to $2 million a year. And then you're starting to do these kind of things bigger and bigger. These are little staircases that get you to your goal. My long-term legacy, Ruben, would be to build a public or private school system that teaches kids confidence, leadership, and entrepreneurship as an option. Because I didn't have those things. We hear about people being leaders in school. Bullshit. I played sports. I varsityed. I made straight A's. I was not given leadership opportunities. The teachers and the coaches, they cherry pick who they want to be leaders. Yeah. And they go, that person's a leader. Sometimes it's because that person's dad was well known in the town, or that person's dad was the coach of the team, or that person's dad was this, so it's like these legacies and nepotism thing that you're playing against. And you're like, well, I kind of want to be a leader, and you don't get the same opportunities. And people that say like, it's all equal, it's bullshit. It's not. So I want to teach people how to actually get an experience. Everyone's a leader. We're not going to say like they're the leader and you're not as good as them. I'm going to teach kids that they're equal from the beginning. And then I'm going to teach them that you don't have to go to school and get a degree and do the 6-figure path. You can actually start a business too. Here's how you do that. Which one do you want? Let's learn both. Give you some options, because I never thought about opening a business. I didn't think it was possible because I didn't think that was an option. So that's what's missing. I know it's getting better because people can access YouTube and podcasts and read books. It's different now. I get it. But the public school systems, they don't talk about entrepreneurship, dude. Even college, they don't talk about that unless you're going to school specifically for that. And that's all a game of them trying to keep their jobs. These professors, these public schools, why are we going to school for 4 years to get a bachelor's degree? And half the classes aren't even something that apply to our career. Like, we're just wasting money. Yeah. People paying people to. It's just it's a waste of money. It's like that art history degree you took didn't mean shit for my engineering degree.
Yeah. No, I think looking back, it's luckily enough, my roommates, I still do business with them today, and they actually introduced me to entrepreneurship. If anything, I think it's your network that you're buying into. And in this day and age, I think we can build that. No, look, the reason why I asked that, because I think I like this theme of having the end goal in mind, but I'm also liking the process of it. And I think where I was going with that too, I think you'd be surprised. There's so many, like in the corporate world, like my background building systems in IT, like these are the same systems you can take. Like I look at a lot of these people, I'm like, is it just because you're like, if you're a director in the corporate world, you can be the director of your own business. Like it's the same skills. Like when I have huddles, it's the exact same huddles I was having in the corporate world with my team. So it's like, I think look, it's not for everybody, but I think what I want to get from this conversation is that you can pull those existing skills. I mean, this is what I'm pulling from your book literally. And I'm like, it's so good. And start applying it into your own, vertical for your business. I mean, or your side hustle. Let's put things into perspective.
Totally, man. The skills we learn in the corporate world, or even your job, even my very first job, McDonald's, flipping burgers and learning the processes. I was weird, dude. I would watch while other high school kids were bitching about their job and and not wanting to be a cool kid working at McDonald's. I was looking at the process. Here I am working at one of the best companies in the entire world about processes and systems, even their training, the processes of making quarter pounders with cheese versus Big Macs. They had a process for everything. They had a training video for every single product they made. And we would sit back there in the little break room and watch these little VHS videos. And it was amazing. Like everything was portion controlled and the flow, and the kitchen layout set there exactly reason for like the timeliness and the process. And so I was very aware of that stuff. I worked there 2.5 years, and I was just paying attention to these kind of things. I know I'm a little odd, but that's what I did. I was like, that's interesting. Okay, you have these different ketchup squirters for the different size burgers. Instead of just going the same ketchup squirter for all burgers, well, the bigger burgers had a bigger squirt of ketchup, so they had a bigger thing to squirt with those, and the small ones had a small one. And I was like, wait, this is kind of cool. Like, I get it now, because the portion control and cost control and efficiency, and you had little stations for each type of sandwich, and the fryers were all different for each type of fried goods. And it's like, you start to compartmentalize. So I'm really wanting people to pay attention to where you're working. What are the things that you can learn where you're working at, regardless of where you're at? Because I guarantee there's something to learn, not necessarily from the people, but the processes and the systems. How do they do things? What could you do better? Maybe that's the problem you solve. Maybe that thing that they miss could be your potential business idea, you know? Yeah. So think about these kind of things and just be aware of everything you're learning. And I agree, Ruben, 90% of the skills we learn transfer over to entrepreneurship. The thing that doesn't transfer over is the risk tolerance.
Absolutely.
And even that's a fallacy. Okay. Most people think that jobs are stable. Most people think that there's such thing as a steady paycheck or your company loyalty. That's all a bunch of bullshit. None of that is even true now. We're 17 million people applied for unemployment last week. I don't know, it's probably well over 20 by now.
Yeah, no.
So there's no such thing as a steady job. And the sooner you realize that you can get some freedom by creating something, even if you have to scale down your lifestyle temporarily, because a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck because they're trying to live a lifestyle that they can't truly afford. If you got to scale down for a 6-month to a 12-month window to do what you actually want to do and be happy about it, do that. Don't quit trying to keep up with people. Like, just get rid of that shit, get it down to the bare minimal, focus on what you really want to do and start taking actions. And then 1-2 years into that, you're going to be happier. You may even be making way more at that time, because 5 years is a lifetime for these online businesses nowadays. I've built and sold a company in 6 years. So that is a lifetime. 1 to 2 years can make a big difference in your impact. So you got to just think about these kind of things and quit sitting on the sidelines, watching all the other people have fun on the field, and start believing in yourself, man. And be okay not knowing all the answers.
Yeah, no, I love how you, first of all, I want to preface or reiterate what you said. I should say, you know, when you said that it's odd, it's not odd. I think it's genius to be paying attention to what's around you, because like you said, I think there's a lot of us, even if your work is getting repetitive and right now, but you have the end goal in mind as to, you know, when you get home, which is when I want to get to, is when you get home to that segment. But looking around, I think some of the best systems have been built. Like you talk about the E-Myth in your book. I mean, there's systems all around us, especially in these large corporations. And I think if we can take a few nuggets, don't just get caught up in the system, but even yourself in McDonald's, as simple as flipping a burger, that's a systematized operation. Like that's, and for you to not be able to see that, I think is such a good key takeaway. But I want to transition to where the side hustle actually starts. When you're at home, you know, how does one take that? Okay, because one of my favorite quotes that you talk about is you're spending 1 to 2 hours on a business. Okay, so how do I get to that? What should it look like when I'm at home? You know, am I learning, then I start applying? Am I learning and applying? How do I split my days? Like, what does that look like when I start my side hustle at home?
First of all, you have to comb out all the excuses, because a lot of times people say they don't have time and they make excuses about their kids or, you know, all these different things. So the thing is, if you were anybody that tells me that, I say, hey, let me show me your calendar. And 99% of people don't have a calendar. And they're like, well, I don't have a calendar. It's like, well, that's the first problem, because we all have access. We carry a phone every day.
Yeah.
We have Gmail calendar. We have Google Calendar. Every app has a calendar in it. If you're not showing what your tasks are every hour, every waking hour, what are you doing in that hour? And you're just kind of free floating and just doing things randomly, you're not making the best efficient use of your time. Now, if you can get involved in just using a calendar, even if 8 hours of that day is going to your job, put that on your calendar. Put it on your calendar. Okay, I leave the house at 7:30 and I get to the office at 8, and I leave the office at 5 and I get home at 5:30. Like, put that on your calendar. Work, block it out. Okay, now you know what's before it and what's after it. Okay, I get home, I got to hang out with the kids for an hour, then they get bored of dad. So maybe, okay, I'll put that on there. Family time, got to do that. Hang out with the wife a little bit. Okay, maybe she wants to watch one show. That's an hour. Okay, that's on my calendar. So what are you doing for the other 4 hours that evening? What are you doing? Oh, you're watching that second show. Oh, you're surfing Facebook and getting on Instagram or getting on Netflix. Like, oh, okay. Or maybe you do have fitness. Maybe you got to get that hour work in. Good. Do that. Put that on the calendar. So you're going to start to see really quick when you have discipline, like, oh man, I've been wasting a lot of time. I've been playing Xbox, been doing things, watching TV, surfing the net. Like, shit, I've been wasting. I guarantee most people are out there wasting 2 to 3 hours a day.
Absolutely.
And they're not being committed. Now, there's always going to be a little bit of sacrifice. Like, nothing's easy. Nothing worth having is easy. Like, you're not going to just create this business and millions of dollars are going to show up the next day. You have to be willing to do this for 2 years. I think 1 year to get into the finally breaking even where you're monetizing and starting to make some profit. If you're not willing to commit to doing something you love, that you're building legacy and significance, and you're not willing to do that for 12 months, then your heart's not in it. Yeah. You're going to get passed by people like me. You're going to get passed by people like Ruben, because we are committed, and we'll outwork your ass for free for 12 months, for 24 months. We'll do that shit for free and smile, because we know that you're not going to last. And that's what the beauty is. And when you start to realize that you can just outlast people by showing up consistently and creating value and acting like nobody, cares, just showing up and just doing this thing because you're driven by purpose, that's when you win. Because most people last 2 months. That's the average fall off. We all seen these people. Anybody listen to this? You got friends with a different business card every 6 months, don't you? Hey, look, I'm doing this now. Or, hey, I got this brand now. Or, hey, I pivoted and now I'm doing this now. Like, those people will never be successful until they realize they have to just be committed to 6 to 12 months minimum in one thing, and then see what the outcome is, and then decide at that 12-month point, is this good or is this going good? Or, what do we got to do? So be committed. That's how you win. Just show up every damn day. And I'm talking the weekends too, because there's that sacrifice. Yeah, it's nice to be able to sleep 8 hours, but if you want something bad enough, maybe you'll sleep 6 hours, because there's other people out there sleeping 4 hours. And I'm not saying to do that unhealthy sleep, hustle and grind, but sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes that hustle and grind, that 24/7 thing that we hear, maybe that's the first 6 months of your startup, because that's life of startup life. That's what it is. You're taking naps and you're doing what you need to do to get the funding, and you're executing and taking actions, and you're taking these bigger steps. And then soon enough, if you build the right processes and systems and you hire the right team and you're making enough money, you don't have to work as hard. And you start to be very successful. You work less hard because you've hired the right team to do that. So understand that you have to pay your dues. There's no get rich quick. It's not easy. Some people aren't cut out for it. Well, hell, most people aren't cut out for it. But if this sounds like that's you and you can take on that challenge, you're going to see the rewards, but you got to outlast people, man.
Definitely, Tony. Tony, I want to talk about you. This is what you said, a key word here. I heard pay and pivot, and I want to talk about those two, because I think the Side Hustle Millionaire, that concept, and it's a real concept for people. I don't think people realize how much they're in a position of they have an advantage, because they have a salary, or they have money, secure money coming in, and then they're in a position where they don't even have to eat into their business, and they can maybe just put money into that. Can you talk about that a little bit? Does that sound familiar by any means at all? Or is this something that you kind of saw or experienced by any chance?
Yeah, that's the thing, is if you're going to create a side business and you have your paycheck coming in from your normal job, you can actually take bigger risks than people that are going full entrepreneurship. And the other thing about side hustles is that a lot of people hear that and they go, oh, well, side business equals side money. No, guys. Yeah. That has nothing to do with the level of income from your side business. I want to put this in perspective, because for 10, 15 years of my oil and gas career, which paid really well, I was making multiple 6 figures. My side businesses, which only took an hour a day, were earning more. Hour a day. So the business that I sold for millions of dollars, that was like an hour a day. The other one that's making 6 figures on its own, 15 minutes a day. So understanding that side business, side time does not mean side money. A lot of people think that it's like this hobby thing, and they're going to get hobby money when they go into it with that mentality. So you got to get out of that mindset of thinking side equals side money, or half-ass, or hobby effort. If you take it serious, you can actually have 0-hour work weeks and make money. If you build the right processes and systems and make it automated, and you've got funnels and you're doing ad spend, it's going to take a lot of time to set this up. But you can create a virtual money machine, and these exist. You and I both know people that are doing this. There's people out there making millions of dollars that don't have to do anything at all once it's set up. It's just doing it because they've combed the process, they've built the audience, they know the message, they've built the right products, they've done a lot of split testing, they've done a lot of things they had to learn and hire people to teach them, but now they've got the results when they can kind of kick back. And those are the people that are doing that whole laptop lifestyle. And, but the thing is, people want that result, but they're not willing to do the work.
Exactly.
So the result is possible. All that stuff you see, it's actually reality if you can build the process. So, dude, you have to just think about that. I love that you brought that up. So side hustle does not mean side income. Treat it like a legit business. Take it serious and take bigger risks, because you can lose that business. You can just crash and burn. You can spend money on it and it can just lose, but your bills are paid and it ain't a big deal, because you learned a lot of things when you take those losses and you go, you know what, how would I do this better? Maybe I got to do this again. And quit thinking that every business that you start is going to be that grand slam. It's just not true.
Yeah.
It's just not true, guys. Most businesses, about 30% of our businesses as a serial entrepreneur, about 30% of them become successful. And that, what's funny thing about that is a good analogy. Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
The Hall of Fame batters. Hall of Fame, the best of the best batters. Their batting percentage is about 30%. The Grand Slam champions, that we all know their big names, 30%. So 7 out of 10 times they got on that plate, they struck out, didn't even make it to first base. But 3 out of 10, they cranked it or it hit an RBI. So you think about that kind of stuff. It's like, wow, if the Hall of Fame baseball players are only hitting 30%, then why do I need to be so hard on myself to think I got to be 100%? It's not true. I started looking back at the businesses I've started, about 9 companies, and 3 of them did really well, 30%. Isn't that weird how the number kind of works out again?
It's crazy. Like, the numbers don't lie. But Tony, I want to, right before we transition to our last segment here, this has been so fantastic. I can't thank you for staying over time. Look, we're in a position right now, if you're listening to this, what is it, our April 16th, COVID-19, right? And we talked, the other keyword that you had mentioned was pivot, right? We're talking about 3 out of 9, 3 out of 10, 70. At what point should I think I should pivot, or do I ever? I mean, look, this is not an easy question to answer by any means, but I'm wondering, like, from your experience, is there something that you see that says, hey, you know what? Maybe the better opportunity is there, and maybe I don't just kill the business, but maybe I pivot in this direction. How do you pivot?
A lot of people will go out of business in these times of crisis because of ego. And you keep hearing me say this, because ego kills a lot of businesses, because people think they're too good to do something.
Yeah.
Or they think that their business model is set in stone and we only do it this way. And I'm too good to go do that. You're not being a good leader. You're not pivoting. You're not looking for opportunity, because when we're in crisis situations, you have to be really creative and innovate. The times that companies emerge and become the ones that make millions of dollars and really create a lot of market share for themselves is during these times.
Yeah.
It's not when things are good. When things are good and everybody's winning a little bit at a time and we're all doing good and it's comfortable, nobody's pulling away, because money is very easy to come across at those times. When there's a crisis and everybody's wanting to run from the crisis and shrink and scale down and hide from the problem, the real winners are going, hey, my competition's running away. I'm going to go forward and like gain some market share and actually start to pivot and start to look at how I can bridge this gap and come out of this on the other side with a bigger market share, more trust, bigger customer base. And that's what we do. So we have to do what's necessary. So think about your business model right now. If your current business model and things are kind of shutting down, you could sit there and complain and feel pity and go, the government needs to help me and they're not, and make all these excuses. Or you can go, hey, you know what? What does it take to have a business? Well, I need an EIN number, employment identification number, maybe an LLC or an S Corp. I need a way to take in transactions. That could be PayPal, Stripe, Square, all these different ways to get paid. Okay, so I have a way to get paid and I have a way to report what I get paid. Therefore, I can actually go start a business right now. I can do anything I want with those 2 tools. So why am I thinking that my business of doing this, which is non-essential, is shut down? I can't do anything else. Like, no, you have a way to get paid and you have a way to report income. So nobody gives a shit what your revenue is coming from right now. It's crisis mode. Be creative. What are the skill sets that you have? What are the skill sets that your team has? It might not even be in your vertical. It might not even be in your complete industry. But you know what? Teams come together, and when you give them the option, you go, hey, I got to lay you guys off, or we can get really creative right now and just make money however we can. And I got a way for us to get paid, and I got a way for us to report that. Do you guys want to be like brainstorming and figuring something out right now? What are the skills that you have, Ruben? What are the skills you have, Tony? What are the things you can do? Maybe we can come up with something new just to patch this, to get through this. And you know what? When you guys come out of that and you see the other side of it, because there's always an upturn out of this, you don't think your bond is going to be 10 times stronger because you guys persevered and worked as a team to get through this together. You may have to take a pay cut, but that's the necessity. That's what we do. You have to do what's, anybody that's out there as an employee right now going, I don't want to take a pay cut. Dude, you're not being a team player. Maybe your employer needs to be like, hey, you need to fucking go because you're not doing what's necessary in these kind of moments. In these moments, it should be like, hey, I only need, you're paying me $10,000 a month. I only need $6,000 a month to pay my bills. And if you went around to all your employees and said, hey, would you rather be 0 per month, or would you take a pay cut to get down to your bare necessities? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is temporary, but we're surviving, but all your bills are paid. You know how much lower their anxiety and their stress would be just because they're getting paid, and they know that their family's being fed, the house is not going to go in, foreclosure. So that is the power of being the right leader at these kind of times. The leaders are built. The character is shown. Character is not built in crisis. It's revealed.
Absolutely.
So be the good leader, lead by example, get really creative. That's what a pivot is. Don't think that you're limited to your industry. Maybe you could reach out to the clients you still have and go, what are the things I can do for you? We have time right now. Oh, we can do that. Learn to say yes and then figure things out again.
Love that one. Love that one. We're problem solvers, right? Yes, and then figure it out.
As soon as you say no, the world tells you no.
Wow. What a great way to end that. Listen, Tony, this was fantastic. I want to give you a quick rapid fire questions. This was one of the best resources I had for books. I was blown away when I love how you did the summary in the end. I want to ask you, what is your favorite book? Do you have one out there?
I would say that I read a lot of books. I usually finish about a book a week on audiobooks, and I've thumbed through books, but I'd say that the one that I think everybody should read is the Carnegie of how to win friends and influence other people, but in the digital age. There's a newer version that adds in emails and digital. So how to win friends and influence people in the digital age. That book is essential. I think that they should have given that to kids in school, to be honest.
I know. There's a lot of things. Yeah.
And what's that book from, like the 1930s or 1940s? Yeah, Dale Carnegie. It's classic.
Yeah, that's a big classic.
But everybody should read it.
Yeah. What do you think is the best habit that serves you every day?
Consistency.
Nice.
That's my word. I give entire speeches on that word. Consistency is a fundamental that most people overlook because it's a fundamental. We hear it our entire lives. Be consistent. Show up consistently work hard. And most people go, I got that. Yeah. What's better, Ruben? Is there some silver bullet or magic potion out there? I've got that. But the thing is they don't have that. They don't have the fundamentals, and the fundamentals are everything. That's why they're called the fundamentals. So when you go look back in consistency, are you showing up every day? Are you doing everything that's possible within your work every day? Are you trying to be the best version of yourself every day, even the weekends? And the answer is no. We all fall off that wagon, but the people lack awareness because they're always looking for this next hit of information, thinking that they're missing something. But if you just go back to the fundamentals and really study those and what do they actually mean and what does that actually execution look like, the answers are all there, man. We have all the answers.
We do. Wow, that's fantastic. If you could have one superpower, what do you think it would be for you in your business or in your current life?
The number one superpower everybody should have is communication skills, verbal communication skills. And this is something that I took for granted for 25 years because I was a manager. I had 75 to 100 people reporting to me. I used to lie to myself like, man, I'm good at public speaking. I can give a hell of a slideshow presentation, and I do project kickoff meetings, and I talk about safety stand downs and on the deck of a boat or in the construction zone. And, so I always thought like, I'm good, man. I'm a leader because I am. And I thought, man, I'm good at public speaking. That's a lie, dude. Until you go get training in actual public speaking, like Toastmasters or a speaking coach, you're going to realize like you just had the occasional courage to stand up in front of people. You didn't have any skills. And that's a hard thing for most people to understand because they think that public speaking, air quotes, is just having that occasional courage to stand up in front of people or get on a microphone. It's not skill set. Yeah. It's like learning a new language.
Absolutely.
You have to learn speak with emotion and conviction and transfer of energy and eye contact and stage presence. And all these things apply not just from stage time. It's on this microphone, it's on camera, it's in front of TV, it's one-on-one conversations. You learn these tactics, you greatly increase your influence and you greatly get your message out there a little bit further when you have these communication skills. People start to pay attention to you when you can speak without saying, and yeah, and like all these distractions in people's most conversations. You train yourself to get that out of your system. I don't say those words anymore. We call those filler words.
Fillers, yeah.
You have to go get that training to be aware of that. Most people are just not aware of that. And then when you come out on the other side, you're like, man, I just didn't know shit. Like this is like, it's like all new language to me. That's the number one skill we're going to need. And it's only going to become more important as time goes because this world is becoming more virtual. Businesses are requiring people to get in front of cameras to build personal brands. And if you are not a good, effective speaker because you haven't invested in yourself, people are going to notice that.
Yep.
I can tell when people get on a stage if they've been trained or not. There's a lot of people that ego, again, gets them on a stage because they've built something or they're successful. Then they go, I'm a public speaker now. And they get in front of an audience and there's 1,000 people. And then you got people in the audience who have been trained and understand what it takes to be skillful on a stage. And you're like, this person hasn't spent an hour being trained in their life, which shows lack of humility because they think they're worthy enough to stand on the stage, but they haven't even invested in themselves to relay the message properly. So it's kind of an insult to the audience. So here was that ego again, right? So think about this kind of stuff. Like people will know if you're investing in yourself. Do that. Go invest. Toastmasters is cheap, guys.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it, like $90 for an entire year or something? It's something ridiculously cheap. And it's a weekly meeting and you can learn public speaking skills and get some training. And it's very hard to do at the beginning because it's embarrassing or awkward, but you got to be willing to go get over that fear to get better. And you'll find that you'll greatly improve in 3 to 4 months. That's what I've seen. I was a president for over a year at a club. It's crazy amount of value for very minimal investment.
Absolutely. I think that's a good one. I'm taking a page from your book because as much as a lot of online things that I do, and it's funny, I'm doing the public speaking coaching, right? I'm getting coached by it right now as we're speaking.
Yeah, we talked about it, yeah.
And I think it's just so important, especially if you're talking about shifting and being humble enough to tap into a skill that you probably need to double down on. I think that's such good advice. Lastly, I got to ask you this just because that's what my agency does. Has your business directly benefited from social media?
Absolutely. Both of them actually. All of my businesses that I've started have been online. So I would say that online space and social media for sure. I mean, I built and sold a company before social media even existed, but back then social media was forums. Yeah. So we just that was a social outlet as well before actual Instagram and Facebook existed. So it was social media and people came back there for the camaraderie and the long-term friendships and things like that. Facebook has relatively taken away the social aspect of forums, but the technical information is always going to be on forums. Yeah. Because Facebook hasn't figured out how to create a good search algorithm to maintain technical database that people can find information on. It's just a social platform. It's not meant for archiving things or easy to find things. Now, yeah, personal branding, getting out there on videos, doing videos every single day and building the audience in the podcast and stuff like that. Those are absolutely required nowadays for doing the things that I'm doing, especially if you're a coach. If you're not building your social media presence and you're a coach or you're trying to have to do something with personal branding, that's just another weak excuse, man. We carry the entire world in our pockets called a cell phone. That is the number one marketing tool in this world, and it's free and you're not using it, which tells me that you're not really as into your business as you say you are, because people come to me all the time telling me, man, my business is failing. I need your help. And, I'm not good at marketing. It's like, are you doing videos? No. I was like, so your business is failing, you're losing money, you're worried about losing your business, you have all these fears and anxiety, but you're not doing the number one free marketing method because your ego. You're so worried about not looking good on camera or sounding funny on camera. So you're willing to let your business die and your family to go hungry because you're too worried about what you think people are going to say about your videos. Is that true? And they're like, oh shit, you just punched me square in the nose with that. It's truth. You're not doing everything you're not doing everything possible if you're not doing that.
Absolutely. And I think you couldn't have tied this any more perfectly. Tony, thank you so much, sir, for not only your drive, pun intended there, 365 drive. You got to check out what he's doing. And most importantly, the Side Hustle Millionaire. I mean, you went from Side Hustle Millionaire to now being a full-time millionaire. So it says a lot about the process, but obviously there's a lot. It wasn't just an event, it was a process. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing that process and keeping all of us humble. Hopefully, if we learned a thing or two from you today.
Yeah, man, I hope that if the listeners, want to reach me, that there's ways to do so.
Yeah. What is the best way that folks can follow more of what you're doing and get your book and all the whole 9 yards? What is the call to action that you have for us today?
Well, first of all, since you were podcast listeners, I have a podcast called 365 Driven. Imagine that branding. And the website is 365driven.com. You'll find links to all the socials, the books, the entrepreneurship community. Everything's on one tidy little URL, 365driven.com.
Nice. And if I can ever make an introduction to you or add value by any way, because I am a super connector, that is my gift. Who would that person look like? Who would that person be? Maybe we can give them a shout, use some video.
Oh man, that's putting me on the spot. I would say if I'm going to swing big like that, I would want someone like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, on my show.
Okay. Dwayne Johnson, you know what? I like to make miracles happen. Let's put that. We're going to get that. We got that in the books. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. That guy's an icon, but definitely. That's amazing. We'll make sure. I'll keep my eye out. I will never quit. And based on what you said, I'm more driven than anything, and the listener should be too, to go and get that goal and pursue it. So thank you, Tony. And just like that, we are out.